welcome to my YouTube. My name's Vicky and I'm What Vicky Made on Instagram and YouTube, and today I'm just on to talk about my latest Ilford jacket. I did a little poll on my Instagram stories and asked if people would want a blog or a vlog on this topic, and I got a very split 50-50 vote with a few people asking if I could do both. So I'm going to doing both a go. I'm recording the vlog first and then I'll write the blog afterwards. So I'll probably upload the vlog first. So if you do have any other questions that still remain after this video, then just pop me a comment or send me a message on Instagram, and then I'll get back to you and I can include those things in the blog as well then. So this is the fourth time I've sewn an Ilford jacket now. It's a pattern byFriday pattern company, if you're not familiar with it. It is a unisex pattern. The previous ones I made it for myself first time around as a coat in a wool blend check coating. I'll put a picture in. The second time I made a shirt for myself in a brushed cotton. Again, I'll pop a picture in for you. And then the third time I made a coat for my husband John. And then this time I've made another jacket for myself. So I thought I'd pop on and talk about this because the fabric I used is a Sherpa Lined Cord, and I bought this fabric from Sew Me Sunshine quite a while ago now. It's not something they stock anymore. It's such a lovely fabric. I really love green. And I was just completely smitten with this lining because it just looked incredible and cozy, and I thought it would make a lovely jacket. And before I started sewing this, I had a look online to see if I could find any guidance on sewing with a pre-lined cord, and I couldn't find anything. So this was a little bit of trial and error for me, and I was sort of winging it and hoping for the best, because it is a thick fabric to work with, and it is a bit different because it's already got a lining. So yeah, I just thought I'd talk about some of the things I did to make this jacket, and I had a couple of questions, so I hope I cover those things as well. So yeah, this is the jacket first of all. Just thought I'd show it to you. And so I made a size large, which actually is down a size from what the pattern recommends, but I do find that this is a very oversized pattern and it's a little bit too oversized for me. So the large is plenty big enough. My other coat is also a large, but the shirt I made in a medium. So yeah, that's the first thing, whereas normally I would be an extra large in Friday Pattern Company patterns. So yeah, that's the first note, and it is a boxy style jacket. I do think it's really good as like a first jacket pattern because you don't have to set in sleeves, there's no fitting really with it. So the first thing I was gonna say is I have chosen to bias bind all my seams and edges. I did this because I didn't want to overlock, because I thought the bias binding looks a lot neater. And like my hems, I've also bias bound because I didn't want to do a double fold, because I thought that would make the fabric too thick. So as you can see on the center button band, it's meant to have a little fold and then the full fold to conceal that edge, but I bias bound it. I also didn't fold it across as much because when I tried it on with the thick inner, it felt a little bit snug. So I actually just did I think it's a 2-inch fold over, and I missed out the 3/8 of an inch or 5/8 that you're initially meant to fold it over by. And I also did my bias binding of my edges before I sewed it together. So look, you can see that I've also done it on the sleeve. Here, look, different colours because I didn't have enough binding. So yeah, I went round and bound my edges before sewing it together. The other thing, now I found this tip on Instagram and I can't remember whose account it was on, but I will link it in the bit below, and I did the same thing when I made my coats as well. How the sleeve is constructed, you sew the sleeve onto the bodice and then you sew straight down the side seam, which would mean that this seam here you would fully sew over, which would make 2, 4, 6 bits of fabric that you'd be sewing through there, if you can see. So what I did here was, rather than overlapping my stitching, I just sewed up to the seam allowance. So first off, when I sewed on the sleeve, I only sewed as far as, I think it's a 5/8 seam allowance on this pattern, so I sewed up to the 5/8 on both sides of the sleeve, and then when I've sewn the bodice, side seam, sorry, I've sewn up again to the 5/8, and then I've started again to sew the sleeve. So I hope that makes sense, and if you can see there, it's not overlapped. You get what I'm referring to there, if that makes sense. But yeah, like I say, I'll link in the comments the Instagram post that I got that tip from, because it was really handy. Otherwise, that's such a bulky seam. So the other things I did was, where I had, oh, feels like there's a pin in it still. I've been wearing that for ages. Oopsie. So one thing was, pins got very much lost in this fabric because it was so thick. I think probably using clips would be better. So yeah, the other thing I did was, where I've got really bulky fabric, I actually hammered the seams. So like on here, I hammered this down just to try and like crush the fabric a little bit, just to sort of flatten it. So I did do that in a couple of areas. The other thing I did was, this Sherpa can be pulled off the cord. I discovered that before I started sewing it. So in certain areas, I've removed the Sherpa from the cord. For example, in my button band, I didn't interface it, and I have just pulled the Sherpa away, but you can't see because I only went up to about here. I didn't pull as far as the stitching because I didn't want it to fray or anything. So I have removed the Sherpa from inside there. I also did that on the parts of the pocket that folds over. I removed the Sherpa on that side. I also removed a little bit from the foldovers on the pockets just to get rid of some of that bulk. And I also did it on the hem as well, just a very small part, just to get rid of some of the bulk. I didn't do that on the collar because my collar, both sides, is Sherpa, so the cord's still inside there, but I hammered my collar flat after I turned it right side out. I have also, because it's quite puffy, I've hand stitched the collar down in the corners. You can't tell when I'm wearing it, just to stop it flicking back up. The one thing I maybe wish I'd done with the collar is made it bigger, because it's such a bulky fabric. I think you lose some of the depth, if that makes sense, because it's quite thick. So I wish I'd made that a little bit bigger now. Also, I used a thread in my bobbin that matched the Sherpa colour, and I used the top thread to match the cord, because I just think it looks really neat. You can't see the stitching there. I also drafted a facing for the neckline. The one thing I don't like about this pattern is how the collar is attached and finished. I don't think it's very neat. I don't like that you snip into the side at the top. I think it just leaves it unstable, and it worries me that the fabric's gonna rip. So what I did this time was I put the button stand right sides together, top stitched. I then got the facing, put that on top of the collar, stitched the facing onto the neckline. I then flipped the facing down, turned the button stand to the right way, and that's how I've got this. I've then hand stitched that facing down. Probably what I should have done with this one is used a bias binding and not a facing. So I was helping my friend make an Ilford at the same time, and what we did with hers was we stitched the collar on, stitched bias binding on the top, and then flipped the bias binding to the inside, and then top stitched it down to conceal the seam. But I went with a facing for mine because I didn't really think about how bulky it was, but it doesn't matter, it still works, and I really like the finish. It's really nice and soft, and I've hand stitched it down so it doesn't flip up and there's no visible stitching from the outside. I'm just trying to think if there was anything else I was meant to tell you about. Oh yes, so the cuffs, I hadn't really decided originally what I was going to do about these. I wasn't going to have the Sherpa showing, which is why I bias bound right to the end. And then I last minute decided that I really liked the look of this, decided to leave the binding on, and I've just rolled it back and hand stitched it down is all I've done there. One of the sleeves is finished with bias binding, the other one isn't. But it doesn't matter because you can't see it anyway, and I don't think it's gonna fray. Yeah, so I also stitched in the ditch the facing down. I did do that on the shoulders, and I've used Pigeon Wishes buttons. I've had these since her second ever button release, when these sold out so quickly. I think they're lovely. I've tried to, if you can see, turn the design round as it goes down, which I thought was a nice little detail. And then I've also got a Little Rosy Cheeks label, Today is a Good Day. I really love visible labels, and I really love that. So yeah, I went with that on the front. It's my first time doing the hand warmer pockets. I've done them for, oh, I think my stitching's come a bit under. Oh, it has. I'll have to fix that. Look, my stitching's got a bit caught. It's the first time I've done the hand warmer pockets for me, and they're really lovely. I really like that style pocket. And oh yes, with the fabric, the only place I've seen this Sherpa lined cord is First for Fabrics sell some in an ochre and blue, I think. So if you were looking for lined cord in particular, that is the only place I've seen it. So yeah, I don't know if anywhere else sells it, but the other thing you could do is buy a fleece and a cord and just pair the two fabrics together and sew it as well. Yeah, so I've worn this jacket so much. It's lovely and warm, and I'm so chuffed with it. So yeah, I have worn it absolutely loads, and I'm really, really pleased with it. I really love the look of it, and I love wearing it. Yeah, so I hope that has been of help. If you have any other questions, just drop me a comment or send me a message on Instagram, and I'm more than happy to answer them, and I'll try and help where I can. Thank you for listening.